Who's scruffy looking?
Welcome back to the Talking with My Hans channel, everybody. We got something new for you today. We don't usually do this. Actually, we've never done this. This is kind of like the first episode of fan reviews, where we just tried to see if it would work. We're gonna have a debate today, so I brought my girlfriend Kate on board, who is a Star Wars fan. Just so everybody knows, we have seen Star Wars. We have, and you've seen a lot. And
only because of you, though. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But you've seen a lot. You've seen it all. You know Star Wars. You know just as much as I do, for the most part. Yeah. Right? We've seen Rebels and Clone Wars, but what we're talking about today is The Mandalorian. More specifically, how watchable The Mandalorian is as your first Star Wars experience. Right?
Yes.
No doubt that The Mandalorian is probably the most popular Star Wars thing to come out, probably since The Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. It's definitely the most talked about, especially right now, just because of how fresh it is. And just recently, it's been announced that this was the most pirated show of the last year, which is fine. At least people are watching it in some sort of capacity. I'm not paid by Disney, so I don't care who takes their money and whatnot. Anyway, we're going to talk about how watchable The Mandalorian is as your first Star Wars experience. Now, I'm of the ilk that The Mandalorian is a very tough watch if it's your first thing. And this is important because we are almost certain that a good majority of these people that are watching The Mandalorian, this is their first Star Wars experience. I don't think it's a great thing to just hop into as your first Star Wars experience, even though a lot of people are doing that. Kate seems to think that
I think it's the perfect place to start, because I don't think you have to have background information to understand the show, number one. And the stuff that does happen in the show, I think it would open doors to people watching other shows.
Okay, so we're gonna do rock, paper, scissors, and the winner of the rock, paper, scissors will get to go first in presenting their opening argument, and then we'll get to go first once again in their cross-examination of the other person's argument. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Shoot.
Oh my god.
Okay, here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay.
Oh no.
Double scissors for the win every time. Just keep doing scissors. Oh, I just kicked something. Okay, so my opening argument. Like I said, I'm of the ilk that I think The Mandalorian is a great show. There's no doubt. Obviously, the numbers say that. But I don't think that this is a show that, if you were watching for the first time, if this is your first Star Wars experience, is something that can be fully appreciated. I don't think that The Mandalorian is made for people. I especially think this. I don't think The Mandalorian is made for people who are watching Star Wars for the first time. I think there's too many outside factors that are brought in for people to really grasp the full realm of the story. Like, Season 2 is the best example of this. How many cameos were in Season 2, right? I mean, right off the bat, you have an obscure, a really obscure cameo who most Star Wars fans don't even know, right? Cobb Vanth played a huge part in that first episode. Obviously, he did not have a more major role down the rest of the season, but chances are he comes back. Cobb Vanth showed up for 3 or 4 chapters in the Aftermath trilogy. That's not even something you've read.
No.
But that's a big deal, right? That's a big deal for the first couple of episodes. Then Bo-Katan comes along, who we know because we've seen Clone Wars and Rebels, and she's a big character in both of those shows, but she plays a major role too. You would never know who that is because you don't watch Clone Wars and Rebels if this is your first experience. And I think it's a big deal that she shows up, because she plays a very integral part in Din's story. Then Ahsoka shows up. Do I need to even say anything about that? If this is your first Ahsoka experience, you're thinking, well, who the hell is that? Is that a Jedi? I thought the Jedi were extinct. And that's the other thing. This takes place in such a weird time in the timeline, after Return of the Jedi, but not so far down the line where the Empire is extinct. Mm-hmm. They're still around, but they're not. They're the Remnant. We know it's the Imperial Remnant because we're aware of what's going on in the time period. But I don't think you can hop in and have this sort of loose conglomerate of Star Wars knowledge where it's Empire versus Rebels. Where's Darth Vader? Where's the Emperor? where's Luke Skywalker? Who does show up? You know, where's the rebels? Why aren't they fighting? Like, I think that's a big... You don't even get the setting. You don't understand what's going on in the galaxy at the point. Like, I just... Not that The Mandalorian's a bad show. I just don't think it's conducive for first-time viewers. All right, Kate.
See, I do. Because I personally, I don't think that people watching this show for the first time care in the slightest where this falls in the timeline of things. I don't think they're necessarily thinking, where's Darth Vader, where's Luke Skywalker, whatever. I think they're watching this show because nobody knew what to expect. I mean, when we saw the trailer for this show or whatever, I was like, okay, I'll watch it. But I don't think anybody could have ever predicted it to become what it is today.
No.
So I think people watching it for the first time are like, okay, whatever. And I feel like a lot of people probably didn't even start watching it until Baby Yoda came around. Because there's a ton of kids out there that watch this show because of Baby Yoda, and they wear the Baby Yoda shirts, and they have the Baby Yoda stuffed animal, but they don't necessarily care about the plot of the show and who's who and whatever. And I think introducing these people who are watching the show for the first time to Ahsoka, to Bo-Katan, whoever else is in the show, I don't think they're thinking, oh, where's this person? They're viewing it as, okay, this is the first time I saw this person, so this is who they are. Then, if they're that curious, if they're gonna get that into it, they'll look up Ahsoka Star Wars and then see, okay, she was in Rebels, she was in the Clone Wars. Maybe I'll watch that show, if they so choose, or they're just viewing it as a total standalone thing where they meet these people for the first time and they don't think anything else other than that. Like, we think further into things. I mean, I don't even. You do.
Well,
I don't care about knowing who the background characters are, every single story for every single person. If I like the show, I'm gonna watch the show. And I think that's what a lot of people watching this show think. They're watching it because they like Baby Yoda, because they like the story, because everybody else is watching it. And if they want to continue watching Star Wars, I think it opens more doors. And if they don't want to continue, then, oh well, they watch The Mandalorian and that's that.
Okay, Alex said that opening argument. That's a good opening argument. That's a good opening argument. Okay, so my first question to you. I know the question is how watchable is The Mandalorian for a first-time viewer? Mm-hmm. Can it be watched? Yes. I don't think... I think you're coming at this argument from a very basic standpoint, which is fine, right? Like, can you watch The Mandalorian as your first-time Star Wars?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You can. People have done it. Mm-hmm. Millions of people have probably done it this year. Are you getting the full emotional impact? Like, that's the thing for me. Like, if you're watching this as your first Star Wars, I don't know if you come back to Star Wars.
Okay, so we'll take it season 1. We'll start with season 1. Season 1, I don't think you really needed that much background information at all to really realize what was going on. Now, season 2...
Okay.
It changes because obviously us seeing Ahsoka compared to somebody who doesn't even know who she is, totally different story. Like, that episode changes everything. If you know where she came from, who she is, that changes everything. But then people wouldn't even realize. If they're watching for the first time, have no other background, they're not going to realize that, like, that emotional impact was there unless they literally go on Twitter or Facebook or something and are friends with somebody who is really into everything and knows what it is.
But that's like
they're missing out on some of it, but they don't know.
See, that's exactly what you just said.
But it's season 2 only. Like, season 1, I can't think of anything.
Season 1's a total... Yeah, that's it.
Season 2 is totally different than season 1. Like,
oh yeah, no doubt.
Totally different.
Now, season 1, yeah, I absolutely think you could hop into that for the first time as a Star Wars viewer. Do I think that, like, you are getting the full range of that show as a first-time viewer? No, because I don't think you, like, a big part of that first season is the fact that Din's a Mandalorian.
Yeah. But people are learning what it is.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know. They're learning what it is. I think the only thing in season 1 that would make a difference if you saw previous shows would be the Darksaber at the end. That would be the only thing where I think you'd be confused. Or, like, people who don't know anything just be like, oh, it's a black lightsaber. Like, whatever.
Like, the Darksaber is the weight, but, like, and they even say it in season 2, is the story behind the Darksaber that has the power. Like, just seeing the Darksaber, like, that's such a confusing ending for somebody that has never seen Star Wars. Like, for us, when Gideon whips out the Darksaber in that last episode, you're like, oh my god, like, how did he get the Darksaber? Because we know the story of the Darksaber. Yeah.
But then people watching it for the first time just take it as that's bad. And if they
though?
really want to, they look it up. And if they don't, they view it as, oh, that's his version of a lightsaber, and that's that.
See, I don't know. I don't know if people like season 2. That's my biggest argument here. Is like season 2.
Season 2 is a different story.
I don't know if your argument works for season 2. Just because, like, think about even like a lowly level cameo like Boba Fett, which in any other year would be like, oh, Boba Fett returns, like that'd be the biggest star. But now Boba Fett returning is like the 5th Star Wars story down the run.
Yeah.
But like, Boba Fett has that whole sequence in that second to last episode where he just goes off for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And like people like me, I don't know, you don't really like the whole. You're not big on like the big fighting and the guns and all that, but like I thought that was like the craziest season of Mandalorian this season. Like when he whips out just the knee thing and the Stormtrooper's going there, he's got the gaffy stick and like that was awesome for me to see because it was Boba Fett, but
yeah, but it was probably cool for other people watching because it was just a cool scene. Like I don't think everybody watches shows or movies needing to know every single thing about every single person and every detail in it the backstory of everybody. Like, I don't. Like, obviously, is it a plus? Yeah, but I think a lot of people think like that.
Like, I think that's a big part of this show. Like, I think that's a huge part of that second season. You're right, the first season, not so much. The first season, you can absolutely hop in as a first-time viewer. Because I think we can all make the argument that, like, we were all first-time viewers, in season 1. Like, nobody knew what the heck was going on. But season 2 is a totally different deal. I mean, season 2 goes off the deep end. Like, I don't think season 2 was that at all. And I think your argument completely falls apart for season 2. I think your argument holds up good for season 1. I don't know about season 2.
Yes, I mean, season 2 is a little dicey. Just because, I mean, there were 3 or 4 people who came in that, like he kind of had to have knowledge of, kind of. But that's when my argument turns to, it opens doors to people. If they are that curious of who's Ahsoka and they look her up and they see, okay, she was in this show and this show, and if I like this show, maybe I'll like the other 2. And then they watch it.
But think about the ending scene that we both love. Like, think about Luke Skywalker showing up in that last scene.
But see, that's different. Because I think everybody knows who Luke Skywalker is.
I don't think people do. But like, why was that a big deal for us? Like, why was that a big deal that Luke Skywalker showed up?
Well, I mean...
Like no, really. Like, answer it. Like, what? Why was that a big deal?
Because it is.
Because Luke Skywalker's a big friggin' deal. That's it. But like, that's why. Like, if you've never seen Star Wars and you don't know that Luke Skywalker's a big deal, we know he's a big deal because, like, he's a legend to us. Like, we know his story. We know what he does. We know where he is in the time. We know what's going on in his life. Like, why he shows up, that's important. Why he takes Baby Yoda. We know why that's important.
Yeah.
At the end of season 2, if you've never seen Star Wars before and Baby Yoda gets taken, you're like, what the heck was that? Where's he going?
Yeah.
But we know where he's going.
I mean, it adds to it if you know, but before I even watched Star Wars, I knew who Luke Skywalker was. I knew who Darth Vader was. And I think most people are in that category. Like, even if you haven't watched the movies, you haven't watched the shows, there's that handful of characters that you know who they are. And even if you don't necessarily know how big of a deal it is, you still would recognize them. Like, if Darth Vader showed up in The Mandalorian, you can't tell me that people who have never watched any of the other shows aren't going to be like, oh my god, that's Darth Vader, and wonder what the heck is going on.
Well, that's a different argument, because the guy's
No,
dead.
it's but people don't know that. They never saw anything before. They just know who Darth Vader is, and if he showed up, they're not thinking about the timeline. I don't think people who are watching this for the first time are thinking, oh, this took place 3 years before this movie and 10 years after this one.
No,
I don't think they're thinking that.
I agree. I don't think they are thinking that, but I think it's important to know. I think it's important to know because there's things that happen in that time period where, like, how would you know, like how would any of that stuff make sense if it was at any point other than that point that, like,
because they're not thinking about that.
I don't know. The commenters will know.
Because people aren't thinking about that. Like, I don't think about that. I'm not worried about that stuff. If I like a show, I'm gonna watch a show, and I think that's what people are doing with this show. If they like it, they're gonna watch it. They like Baby Yoda, they like the story, they can talk about it with their friends. And that's that. So if you're giving me the argument of this isn't necessarily the first show to watch, where would you start? Where would you tell someone to start? If you said, okay, don't watch The Mandalorian first, what's the everything? Because it can't be everything.
No, it can be everything.
It can't be everything.
Listen, here's what I'll say. I don't think you go in The Mandalorian without watching at least the original trilogy first. I really don't. I think you need to watch the original trilogy because end of season 2 is like the end of the show right now is completely original trilogy based. Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker, Imperial Remnant. Like, I think you gotta watch that.
Then what about Ahsoka showing?
I don't think.
What about all that?
I don't think you have to watch all of Clone Wars. I don't think you have to watch all of Rebels, because not all of Clone Wars and Rebels is Mandalorian based. You know, I think if you're really interested in the Mandalorian, I think, you know, you look up and you say, what are the Mandalorian based arcs in Clone Wars? What is there, 6 or 7 3-episode series? Like you get the Obi-Wan and Satine. You know, maybe you get Ahsoka and Lux Planteri on Mandalore where they meet Bo-Katan for the first time on that snowy planet. Yeah. You know, maybe you watch the Siege of I think you watch the Siege of Mandalore for sure, right at the end, to get that whole background. I think you definitely watch, you know, was it season 4 of Rebels, the opening, where Sabine leaves and goes to see Death Watch. I think you definitely have to get the Death Watch aspect in, because that's a whole nother thing with that argument too, is like a big part of Din's backstory is that he's taken by Death Watch as a foundling. Yeah. Right? Like, who's Death Watch? You know, like I think you need to have that. You know, and the other thing is, like, he was taken in the Clone Wars. You see these droids shooting at him, you're like, what are those? Right? Like, I think you got to have that background too. No, you need to watch all of Star Wars? Absolutely not. Do I think you need to do what we did and go 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, Rogue One, you need to watch Solo? No. I think you definitely need to watch the original trilogy. Just like any other Star Wars experience, I don't think you go into any other Star Wars experience without watching some of the movies. 4, 5, 6 especially 4, 5, 6. And now, I think we've even had this conversation before. I know I've had this conversation with some of the viewers and on fan reviews. 5 years ago, the Clone Wars was like, you could probably skip it. I don't think you can. I don't think you can skip the Clone Wars anymore. Like, I think you have to watch that show if you want to be. This sounds very gatekeepy, but like, if you want to be a Star Wars fan, I don't think that's material that you miss. Ahsoka is so big now. Yeah. Right? Like, Ahsoka and Rex and the clones are such big characters, especially now with the Bad Batch coming out. Like, that's a big deal. And I think Rebels is right there too. Like, because Ahsoka's in Rebels too. Like, I think Ahsoka really does make this whole thing.
Yeah, I think she's the biggest point that would make it confusing for people, or, in my point, open doors for people to watch other things. Yeah,
I can definitely see your point. I don't think it's invalid. I don't think your point's invalid. I see that side of it for sure. For me personally, maybe it's because my worldview is that I've done it all. Yeah. Right? Like, look at all the books. Like, I've read all the books. I know who Cobb Vanth was, like, right off the bat. As soon as you go watch the reaction I did, as soon as he showed up, as soon as it said, what was the title of that first episode? It was The Marshal. Yeah. As soon as I saw The Marshal, I was like, it's Cobb Vanth. I knew that right off the bat. But, like, sure, people don't know that, but, like, maybe it's just my worldview that's messed up.
I think because, all right, if we view it this way, I just thought about this.
Maybe I'm a bad guy.
No, because if people are seeing Ahsoka first, they don't know where she came from. We'll think of it in terms of the movies. You see Darth Vader first, and then you learn where he came from. Mm-hmm. So if you view it that way, it makes sense because that's technically how the movies worked. If you view it that way, they're seeing her first, and then they're like, oh my god, where did she come from? Even though we know they're just doing it backwards.
Yeah, I agree, but I think it's a different scenario because Darth Vader's one of the main characters. Yeah. Like, he's very much, not only is he one of the main characters,
he is
the main character. Like, in learning his backstory is part of the story. It is the story.
Yeah, but learning Ahsoka's backstory is not necessarily the point of the Mandalorian.
But there's so much more to Ahsoka's backstory. Like, I think it's volume too. It's not just about, like, what's part of the story. I think Ahsoka's backstory is volume based. Like, there are 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. Yeah. There's 4 seasons of Rebels that are Ahsoka based, right? Like, you can learn Darth Vader's backstory in 3 movies. Yeah.
I just think that's the way that people would view it, and I think a lot of people probably wouldn't even go back to watch anything. Like a lot of these little kids and whatever, and even adults that are watching this just because everybody's talking about it, and it's literally everywhere you go. It's on the news, it's in the stores. I think people are just watching it just because it's like the most popular show.
It's hot right now. Like, well, yeah, no doubt. But,
and it's a good show in general. I think it was made, this is my opinion, to either be watched alone, like you start there, but the other things are added, like Ahsoka and all the other cameos are in there for us to enjoy it even more.
So, if you're watching this and this is your first, like if The Mandalorian was your first Star Wars experience, my argument is not like you can't be a Star Wars fan if you don't see all the other things first. That's absolutely not my argument. Like I think we're both in agreement that, like, we talk about this all the time, like think about how many Star Wars fans we have gained over the last 2 years just because The Mandalorian is so popular. The fan base has probably grown exponentially. I don't think it's doubled, but I think it's a lot. It's very popular right now just because you go out on the street, go to the grocery store, go to the bank, go to anywhere. You'll see somebody with a Baby Yoda sweatshirt on or a pop socket or something, right? Like it's out there. People watch the show. And I'm not saying that like you can't be a Star Wars fan. I just don't know if The Mandalorian is your first Star Wars viewing. I don't know if you're getting the most out of your first Star Wars experience that you possibly can. But you know what? I guess an argument can also be flipped on its head. Like maybe now Clone Wars is going to be twice as good for you.
Exactly.
Because you're learning about Ahsoka. Maybe Rebels is twice as good for you because Ahsoka's in it, Or, maybe the original trilogy is going to be twice as fun for you because you're learning about Luke Skywalker and Boba Fett and, maybe that's a big deal for you. And that's absolutely fine. That's a totally valid Star Wars experience. I just don't know if it's the most enjoyable, but...
Yeah, do you miss out on things? Maybe. But then when you go back and watch them, you know what's going on and you gain them.
I want you guys to get involved. Absolutely want you to get involved. Leave a comment down below. You know where this is going. Is The Mandalorian watchable as your first Star Wars experience?
Yes.
Kate's argument?
Yes.
She's very much on the yes train. Or do you need some prereqs? You need some prerequisites to watch The Mandalorian. Of course, it's always up to you guys. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. I'll try to get back to as many of you as I can. I really do try, but sometimes there's just a lot of comments. I can't get to them all. And of course, please subscribe, leave a like or dislike, whichever you like. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.